let me tell you, money talks, you know, and it's a wealthy developer, even if we went, like I said, we went away tomorrow, the organization I'm talking about, there'd be somebody coming in here, you know, and taking over the situation.
Well, we'd still live here because we own
Well, you
property.
still live here because we have some legal rights, but, you know, who you pay your dues to, that could change tomorrow. Now, that's an exaggeration, but it could change, that's all I'm saying. So, because this place is too, they're gonna fill a vacuum, this place is just too valuable as long as we halfway keep it up. And that's my point, is that we need to keep it up.
Great, thank you. Are there any other sort of, again, I know most of this is pretty expected, but good to document. But any other surprises?
I think I got to see some of your previews where you were previewing some of the written responses online. And it was really interesting to see the results of the survey because, for example, if we go to a business and we rate it online, we've been to that business.
Right.
But what we're seeing a lot here is a lot of ratings and responses and views concerning amenities that maybe people haven't even used or been to before. And so my concern is just when we evaluate the data that we understand that and we don't let that skew the response too much. And then also too with some of the amenities, and it came up a couple times, there are amenities that we aren't able to use right now. And so to look at that response of, well, I've never used it, and then compare that to what somebody might deem the value of that, we have to take that into consideration as well. For example, the tennis courts, that was a great example of something that we can't use it right now, but people do really think it's important. And then I'm gonna second y'all's comment too as well about in the future asking the why behind why you think it's important, because I think there's a large group of people who understand that too audience perspective.
Right.
We may not use the golf course, but we understand that the golf course can generate revenue, and that revenue will help offset our membership dues and keep those lower. And we see the importance of having both members and guests accounted for.
Yes, and that specifically was represented well in the additional comments. And so there was that, and that's why we've left so many open-ended additional comments and spaces for people to make those sort of comments, because again, it was a very long survey, so, you know, trying to get into the, it was overwhelming as it was, and so getting into the specifics too much was going to be an inhibitor, more so than it was, if that was the case. But yes, I like the actual verbatim responses have a lot of that detail and will be summarized, so that I think that'll be insightful. And again, like, you know, with these, like you said, like the disc golf was not, you know, that might have been why it was not as utilized as we would have expected. So there will be, as we go through this, you know, we'll have more information and we'll be focused on looking at those reasons and why they're improving or not, and why, if they're being used or not. And then also I think the thought is that, you know, when we go through this process, this is a great exercise for everyone to understand, but this specific, you know, this is a really sort of comprehensive, again, general community sentiment survey, and so, but it's, the board, y'all will, and of course the membership will weigh in, but y'all will have the opportunity to look at these from a more, you know, a higher level in how it pertains to the budget and planning, you know, long-term, short-term, and all of that. So it's not specifically to say that the value is there or not there. You know, that'll ultimately be part of a more budgetary and planning process, but just to give kind of an idea of the sentiment is kind of what we were doing with this. So this is again a process and the first, and so it will we'll continue with this first discovery process and with session 2, and then there will be you know, follow-ups after that, and or hopefully and ways to again kind of get into the details of some of these things more closely with as we move along. But let's see, common themes. I think you know, pool, golf, trails, facilities, maintenance, landscape, history, peaceful, peace, quiet, all of that was very well represented, and certainly not a surprise. All of those are wonderful, wonderful things. But what, you know, if someone wants to kind of speak to any positive highlights and biggest concerns that you noticed?
Oh, I'll go. I mean, we just moved here, so taking the survey was a lot more informational than what I received moving here. You know, it pointed out a lot of amenities that I had no clue about. Wasn't even a reason why we bought here. You know, but yeah, I mean, I think it's extensive enough, but there are specifics I think we do need to dive into, because a lot of the answers I put, I don't know where that's at. I don't know where that's at, and I just skipped over that, and I'm hoping that it's not gonna skew it in a direction of like somebody who says it's not important because I don't use it. It's a little different there, because I don't know where it's at.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
I think the non-answer is an answer also, because, you know, a lot of the times, I mean, there are, the people that are saying it's not important or something, you know, that have a negative feeling, they're responding.
I don't wanna be bunched in with them.
Did you leave the whole thing blank?
No, I answer a lot because I'm connected here, but
Yes.
not in a lot of these other senses here.
I don't know, but I do think, I mean, it's definitely, again, you know, it's something to dive into deeper, with more focused efforts, but I do think, there were several questions that were left unanswered, but it seemed to follow that same pattern, that it was just a matter of that wasn't important, or they didn't have a full understanding of it, but it wasn't, because there were some negative comments and negative feelings about things, so I think that,
Sure.
that was, represented.
I want to say, I think it's a great positive that it's a wonderful first step, and it's communication, and it's opening the door for communication, and like you said, we have to start somewhere. And then as far as themes that I saw, I love that there is a consensus somewhere, and it's in quiet and peaceful and pool and golf course, and so there's, you know, and trails, there's a great place to start, because a lot of the membership does value some top 3 things there.
Right.
So.
Yes, yeah, I agree, thank you, that's great. Kathy, did you?
I agree with everything that HN said, right? I mean, trust me, I've been coming here, well, I've been coming since 1985, we bought our house in 1994. One thing that really surprised me is when they decided they were gonna put a walking track in, I thought, that's gonna never work, that's just gonna fail. I am very surprised to see, I see a lot of people walking on it. You know, it's right there, they can get there, they don't have to worry about going on the trails way in the back, they could fall, they could stumble. But I was really surprised that it was done and people are using it. I also have to compliment the same thing, we now have Bullis Hall, okay? The motel has been worked on, we needed the motel, it was deplorable way back when. And I know times they are changing. If we could ever get an eating place here, we might be able to get some of the groups to come back. The elder hostels would come here, if nothing else, to learn about the historic buildings. They would come to do their golfing and everything, they would do their artwork, they were great older people. And then we had the spelunkers come through, and they just had so much fun here, looking at that, looking at the well. I mean, people coming in and out. And obviously, the only group I think that still comes cruising through has got to be the bikers, the bicycle guys. Okay, when they tour, they always
The
come here.
cyclists.
Bicycles.
Cyclists, not bikers.
Yeah,
right?
cyclists. Let's keep them,
We're
let's
gonna
keep
have
them
a
separate.
glossary of terms
Yeah.
also, which is like.
Bikers. But
But
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
that's a
thank you.
good point, the bikers should be, what's the word I want, marketed, because they.
Right,
yeah,
Marketing.
because you
Because
have
they
Highway
can-
90 and just tour through.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
you've got
absolutely.
3 biker trails north of here.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
great one.
The
Absolutely.
sisters.
Yeah.
Twisted
Absolutely.
Sisters.
Yeah,
It's-
it's like one of the
And they're
top
right,
ones.
and they stop,
Sure.
I think they all stop at the bus barn where the school buses are. That's as far as the tour comes, it doesn't come into town.
And that's a very simple fix. I mean, going to the one burger joint on 334 and putting up whatever we're doing you've solved that. I mean, they stand out there for 3.5 hours for a burger.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
the point being is that
You have to
the
direct
trail
marketing.
is not
Yeah.
into town.
No, but that, I mean, it's
You
an
know.
easy stretch to get her,
Yeah,
hey,
right, I-
come a little past and come see this. I mean,
I agree, but that becomes a marketing thing.
Sure.
Yeah, that's homework.
We have to be ready for that too.
Right.
That's,
well, maybe we'll only put it on very small.
I mean, I'm an operations guy, I understand that. I feel for you.
Any other, concerns, questions?
I mean, do we have guided tours of this place?
I think there are a lot of opportunities,
Sure.
guided
For sure, for sure.
So,
When was the last time you were
so
a
you're
tour
gonna
guide?
study and guide the tour.
3 years ago.
Well, there you go.
So guided.
I mean, it's kind of, I mean, there is some, but yeah, nothing.
there was a walking self-guided tour brochure that was printed at one time,
Cool,
but it has not been updated.
okay, all right.
And the historical society, sometimes, you know, Russell Knowles or those there, they'll open the museum during the week, even though it's open on weekends, if requested, and will give tours, but it's not
Market it.
marketed or structured, because they're, you know, volunteers, and so.
But you also
And-
have
and you also
to
have the
market for volunteers.
The key is food
You know,
service.
I'm sitting here with time.
But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, the
I mean,
food service
The
is.
key to make this place hit that critical mass is gonna be food service.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
It's the only thing
I absolutely agree on that.
Well, tonight is the historical society's,
Oh, I'm gonna be there.
yeah, there, you can meet a lot
I'm gonna
of,
shake up a lot of stuff there too.
So,
Well, I'm a docent at the museum, and I've opened up the museum several times for basically a private tour if anybody wants to go. And like I said, we might, that's something we probably need to maybe get a little more organized too. I don't know how we do it exactly, but
Well, I think that's an easy fix too. I mean, you know, some of these things are easy, it just is gonna take some time and.
volunteers is the key.
The volunteers is the key,
I was gonna
yes,
say, yeah.
yes,
More people,
always,
yeah.
always the key.
Um,
Have you ever had like I've honestly, I've never been, but I've heard of them, like when you go up to Dallas and have those, where it's like an audio, you take the tour yourself, but
Oh,
instead of
yeah.
like looking at a pamphlet, you're here, you started at a certain point and then you walk and you hear, okay, now you're in front of this and this is what this is, cause then maybe you won't need to rely on people as much, but I still think to get anybody to come and walk around,
we
they're
used
gonna
to-
wanna eat eventually.
Right, exactly.
We used to do that in Brattonsville in South Carolina. It's where the Patriot was filmed. But we had the walking tour with them, and I called them up to see if they had it, and they stopped doing it 10 years ago, and I don't know why. But that's exactly what they had. You went in, you got your recorder, you had earphones or whatever,
Yeah.
and you did the whole tour of it. And so I was calling them to see what they were doing. And for some reason, they quit it, and I'm not sure why.
Probably a pretty easy formatting, like podcast type thing, subscription, where you just like, okay, so you would take each individual podcast and it'd be 30 or 45 seconds and you're going through and on a prescribed app already, that way you don't have the infrastructure behind it.
And I think that's what happened. Technology
Yeah,
outdistanced what they
Sure,
were doing.
sure,
They
sure.
just
Ghostly
never-
Tours did that.
yeah,
last
Ghostly
year.
Tours did one, I don't know how they set it up, but
It was,
yeah,
I think it was
somebody
like a
was.
web link or something that.
Yeah.
Cause I
Yeah.
saw, we saw some people driving around and, you know,
Yeah.
you know, they had the map, they had a brochure, and then they were listening to something and they were stopping at individual houses. This was during the summer.
So
you know.
things like
Yeah.
that, there's
Very cool.
geocaching,
yeah,
which is
Which is actually
perfect for this place.
pretty big,
Yeah.
surprisingly, if you start to look into it.
Yeah.
And the Pokemon Go thing.
I actually mentioned,
That's how
I mentioned that a couple
I
weeks ago.
learned the trails
Yeah.
when I moved here. My daughter was into Pokemon
Sure.
Go, and so she was always going, let's go out and find some. So we went through all the trails just to find Pokemon.
I mean, in
I
Monument Valley, I remember people just like, yeah.
We didn't run off any cliffs though.
Yeah. But yes, certainly lots of opportunities. So, okay, I think we will take a, oh, perfect.
Yeah, you did it.
Wow. That's, unusual, but, so we'll take a 5-minute break, I'm gonna put out some snacks back there, and then we'll move into more of the workshop side and be writing some things down and kind of take all of this information and just sort of streamline and establish some foundational elements and then talk about the next step. So, if you wanna take a moment, stretch your legs, and